Hey guys, welcome to Square 64. This is the analysis of a game that I just played on Leeches. I had the black pieces. The game went thus.
E4,
White plays e4.
E6,
I go with e6 with the French.
knight F3,
White plays knight to f3. That's the king's knight defense of the French.
knight
I
C6,
transpose to Nimzowitsch defense. Now, this is not a good defense for black to play because black gives white the opportunity to advance in the center with d4, but as my opponent was provisional player, not an experienced player, had a 1723 rating, provisional rating, that is very low rating on Leech's classicals at least. So I just went for the shock value by playing Nimzowitsch defense, which is knight to c6. But this is a dubious opening. You shouldn't play this opening against experienced players or uh, uh, players who know at least what to do against these kinds of openings. Just go with the French or Sicilian or Scandinavian solid openings. Do not play Nimzowitsch. I just played it for fun. Now, white
D4,
continues with d4 by taking the center.
D5,
I play d5, challenging the center. Yeah,
E takes
e takes
D5,
d5,
E takes D5, bishop
bishop
B5,
pins the knight. I go a6, challenging the
K6,
bishop.
bishop takes
knight,
C6,
pawn
B
takes
takes
bishop.
C6,
Now white is clearly better at this position because has a defended center pawn, namely d4. I have a pawn on d5 also controlling the center by but I also have double pawns on the c5, namely c7 and c6, and I do not have a good way to develop my bishop, my queen, the other bishop, the knight, and the castle. That's the main plan of any opening, is to develop your pieces, take initiative, and to castle, safeguard the king, and start with the attack. And with the Nimzowitsch opening, this is the Franco-Nimzowitsch variation, which is more dubious than the main line of the Nimzowitsch opening. Wouldn't allow black to do any of it. So
knight
white
E5,
goes knight to e5, which is again a natural square for the knight to be in, controls lots of squares in black's camp, and uh, uh, my queen can't be developed to d7 now because the knight guards that square. So
bishop
I go
B4 check,
bishop to b4 check,
C3,
pawn to c3, which is uh, also defending and attacking my bishop, defending the check, attacking my bishop. Bishop has to
bishop
move,
D6,
goes back to d6, attacking the knight.
knight takes
White
C6,
plays knight to c6, attacking my queen, and potentially inducing a fork later on. So
queen D7,
queen goes to d7 now because d7 is not protected by the knight anymore. So queen develops to d7.
knight E5,
Knight goes to e5, attacking the queen once again.
bishop takes
Bishop
E5,
takes knight,
D takes
pawn
E5,
takes bishop,
knight E7,
and now I develop my other knight to the e7 square. So
short castle,
now white castles, just natural move.
short castle,
So white castle, natural move.
bishop
Bishop goes
F4,
to f4, another good square for the bishop to go. Bishop could also have gone to e3, attacking on the queen side, but decides to go to f4 instead. Attacks on the king side, which is also perfectly fine.
bishop
My
B7,
bishop has to go on b7 because it doesn't have squares like these, and these to go to, because all of these squares are protected or blocked by my own pieces. So it has to go to a passage square, b7.
knight D2,
White develops the knight to d2 because can't develop the knight to c3 because there's a pawn, and d2 is again a perfectly fine square for the knight to be in.
knight
Now
G6,
I not develop, just attack the bishop by playing knight to g6.
bishop
Bishop
G3,
goes to g3, keeping guard the diagonal and also protecting the pawn on e5, which is attacked by my knight on G6. Now this pawn on E5 is going to play a crucial role in middle game and the end game, because this is a center pawn and this is a weak pawn for white, because this pawn isn't protected by any of white's pawn and is protected by bishop and is attacked by my knight. So attacked once, defended once, equal position here. White is still better because of the space and the advantage in development that white enjoys in this position. Now
D4,
I go for the d4 break because I needed the pawn break uh, so that my pieces can just breathe. Everything is blocked. If I didn't go for the d4 break, my pieces would have been stuck and white would just develop the queen, develop the rooks, connect the rooks, and develop the rooks on e5, just advance the e5 pawn. My queen would have to move, and that's just one position for white. So I
C
had to
takes
make that
D4,
pawn break naturally. C takes
Queen
d4,
takes
queen
D4,
takes d4. Now this is a crucial moment for white, because the only good move here is to develop your queen to the e2 square, because not only the queen protects this e5 square, which is now attacked by two pieces, was attacked by my knight and now also attacked by the queen on d4, but is only protected by the bishop. So if I say combination knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, that sacrifices in the exchange, white is just losing a bishop here. But if the queen goes to e2, now the queen protects e5, so attacked twice, defended twice, and not only that, queen is guarding a lot of white squares in black's position and also in its own position, and my bishop here has only one diagonal that it is controlling, which is completely passive diagonal. So queen to e2 was a good move, but white didn't play that move.
Knight
Instead,
F3,
white goes for knight to f3, which is an inaccuracy. Yes, white protects that pawn, but I can just take the
Queen
queen now.
takes D1,
I like to take the queen. I go for the queen exchange because in this position white has too much initiative, and if I let the queen, if I let the queens be on the board, white just has too much initiative and white's camp will fall. Sorry, black's camp will fall eventually.
Rook F
Now,
takes D1,
rook takes queen.
Bishop takes F3,
I take the knight on f3 with the bishop. Pawn
G
takes
takes F3,
f3.
Rook Fe8,
Rook to e8, attacking the unprotected, sorry, unprotected pawn on e5. Now again, the pawn on e5, which is attacked twice, defended once.
F4,
So white now plays a very bad move, f4. Yes, f4 defends e5, and e5 is not weak anymore because a pawn is protecting e5. But by playing f4, white blocks all the squares that the bishop could go to. Now bishop is out of the game. Black bishop couldn't go to any square because the only square that the bishop could go is h4, and that square is protected by the knight. So if bishop goes to h4, knight takes h4, just I'm just a bishop up. So that was not a good move. I would have just gambited the pawn, just advances, would have just advanced the pawn to e6 and forced black to either play f takes e6 or rook takes e6 and move the bishop by moving left pawn to f5, and I've just got active bishop, two rooks, safe king, again just one position for white. But white
H5,
plays f4 instead, and I reply with h5 with the idea of playing h4 later on, strapping the bishop and just winning the bishop for free. But white against
H4,
that idea by playing h4 himself, so
Rook A D8,
I just oppose the rook on d8. Again, I want to simplify as much as I can because this is going to be a technical position and I have pawn deficiency on both sides. So I would want to simplify because my knight is very active and the bishop is passive. So if I manage to take both rooks off the game, so just one position for me because the bishop is never moving and I could just chop off white's pawn with my knight and the king advance. So I do that. I just play rook to d8 opposing the rook.
King f1.
King to f1. I do not know what that move is. I don't know why would he just move the king, because the king is perfectly safe and is not susceptible to attacks by white's pieces any very soon. Because I can't move the knight because the knight is going to be taken and the knight is going to be attacked. I can't just move the rook to a place where black's king is attacked. Pawn advance is not prepared, and again the other rook is attacking the e5 pawn. So black's king was very much safe. I do not know why white did play that f1 move, just losing a move there.
Knight e7.
I moved the knight to e7. That is a very important move in this game for me, because if I didn't, and let's say I just took the rook, now after recapturing and me playing some move, just say attacking this e2 by playing b8, white would have played f5, attacking my knight, and my knight had to go to e7 eventually. But if I did allow white to play, say, f5, then the bishop is free. The bishop can go to f5 and would control important black squares in black's camp. So just to prevent f1 from moving, I played knight to e7 before white could play f5, challenging the knight. So
Rook
white
ac1.
goes to attack the unprotected c7 pawn with rook to c1.
Rook takes d1 check. Rook takes d1.
Captures the rook.
Rook b8.
I go to b8, just attacking the unprotected pawn on b2. Now the better move for the white camp would have been just to play this
b3,
just negating any attacks against this b pawn. But
rook b8.
white, as we all see, didn't go for that move. Instead,
rook d7.
played rook d7. Now rook d7 is not a horrible move, but loses the initiative. Yes, attacks the knight, but
knight f5
can go back to f5 and it's completely safe. Now again, white should have played b3 at this point, with the same idea of protecting the b pawn against my rook attack.
Rook takes
but
c7.
Doesn't do it. Plays the dubious move rook takes c7. Now it is very common for the low rated players not to see the big pictures in these positions, because okay, white sees a free pawn, white takes a free pawn, but now
rook takes b2.
when I take the b2 pawn, I can just take another pawn on a2 and advance my a pawn towards queenie. If
rook takes c7,
say white played b3 here, I couldn't have advanced my rook, and thus diffusing any ideas of advancing this a pawn towards queenie. Now in these positions, if you are playing against a fairly unexperienced opponent, chances are that the opponent is going to take these free pawns, or just will give you random checks or attack random pieces without seeing the big picture, without seeing the initiative behind those attacks or checks. And this is what happened here. Rook takes c7, dubious move.
Rook takes b2.
Rook takes b2, getting back the pawn.
Rook c8 check.
Now rook check. Rook check again. It's just white had a better position, winning position. In fact, now white has lost all of its initiative, just giving random checks. As I said before, there is no reason to give this check because my king will just
King
move
h7.
to h7 and the king is perfectly protected. White has just lost a move because
Rook
you will
c7.
see white comes back to e7, and that's not what player should do in these positions, because my my a pawn is going to be queened this position if white doesn't play a7 eventually.
Rook takes a2.
I take the free pawn again, just preparing this a pawn advance by taking a2.
Rook takes f7.
White doesn't play rook to a7, which was the most natural and the most logical move. Instead goes for another free pawn, takes f7 pawn. I mean, this is just dubious for white.
King g6.
I just play my king to g6, protecting the knight, attacking the rook at the same
Rook
time.
c7.
Rook just goes back to c7 instead of going to a7, just losing a move, because when I play a5,
Rook a7
goes to a7 now, just losing a move in between by playing rook to c7.
a4.
I advance my pawn.
e6.
White advances e6. Horrible move, because before the e6 advance, the e pawn was protected by f4 when the pawn was on e5. Now white wants to advance this point. I said point. That's not good. White wants to advance this pawn towards queening on e8. But that's clearly not going to happen because this pawn is completely unprotected. My king is going to chop off this pawn anytime he wants. So
a3.
without caring much, I just advance my pawn.
Rook f7.
Now white to f7. This is just losing for white, because come on, I can just give a check. The king has to move. My pawn will advance to queen. This is just lost position. This is a dubious move. This is a blunder for white for playing rook to f7. Now I can't obviously take the rook straight away with the king, because pawn on e6 protects this rook. But the rook doesn't have any squares to go. I mean, he takes the knight, king takes knight, up the exchange. The only moving piece for white was the rook, and he has just lost that if he takes the knight. So without
Rook
much
a1
care,
check.
I just check the king on a1.
King e2.
King moves to e2.
a2.
Advance the pawn to a2.
Rook takes
now
f5.
Rook takes knight. This is another blunder. See, yes, not only white is giving up the exchange by exchanging a knight for a rook, but also you have to see this bishop is still immobile. The bishop has nowhere to go. My knight was an active piece 10 moves ago. In this position, my knight's only job was to block f5. Just to block f5, because if I let white play f5, pawn to f5, then the e6 pawn is protected, and now white will threaten the queen, the e6 pawn, and I have to take countermeasures against white's potential queening. But the knight was protecting, blocking that f5 square, so the pawn couldn't move, and this pawn was unprotected. Now rook takes knight. I just take the rook with my king.
King takes
Again,
f5.
the king is still protecting the f5. The pawn on f4 still can't move. White has just lost a rook for nothing. And if you see the computer analysis, it says minus 63.1, of course, because I'm going to queen. White has one passive. Passive is saying more than it should be said, because the bishop can't move. Bishop just can't move. No squares for the bishop to be in. My king is an active king. This pawn is falling. My rook is going to give a check. The a pawn is going to be queen, and that's just lost, completely lost position for white. So at this position,
e7
advances the pawn. Yeah, this is lost position, and I don't know what else to do. White should have resigned from this position here on, but decides to play for a few more moves. Now uh, this I did think about this position for 30 seconds or so, because this was important position, because if I moved my king trying to attack that potentially winning pawn that is on e7, then white would just queen, and that's just lost position for me. So the best way to move, the best way to play here is just to sacrifice your rook. Could seem to you counterproductive, productive, because you are sacrificing your active piece. But if I
rook
sacrifice my
e1
rook here by
check,
giving a check on e1, he
king
has to
takes
take,
e1,
and I
a1
advance and
promotes to
promote
queen
my
check,
pawn to a1, queen queen on a1 with giving a check. So
king
white
e2,
has to move.
queen
I go
a8,
to a8. The pawn is going to be chopped off. White resigns at this position. Now here is a lesson for you guys. Always analyze the position by seeing the big picture. Take your time. This was a classical game. White had ample time. I was short on time. When I say short on time, I was on 34 minutes mark, and white was on 41 minutes mark. So white had ample time to give every move a decent amount of thought. But white saw, oh, a free pawn, I should take a free pawn. Took the free pawn and had to resign ultimately, because I got a queen. So always try to see the big picture before you take a free pawn or a free piece. Just analyze the position first. Try to visualize the position, and try to see what would happen if you take the free pawn. What's your opponent's next move gonna be? Because oftentimes you are gonna face sacrifices, and Greek gifts, bishop sacrifices, knight sacrifices, often queen sacrifices. Uh, if you see Vishwanathan games, he sacrificed a lot of his queens on the middle of the board, and these moves are very dangerous, because if you do not take if you do not accept the sacrifice, then you're just losing, and if you accept the sacrifice, then you're also losing quickly. So analyze the position before you take a free pawn or a free piece, especially when you are up the exchange or have better position, because if you have a better position, try to hold on to your initiative. Try to play solid moves, protect all of your pieces, protect your pawns. Do not leave holes in your structure, because your opponent can utilize those holes, can put a knight in a pawn hole, can take advantage of a diagonal with a hole, can take an advantage of open file with the rook. So always analyze, always visualize, think before you move a piece or a pawn. So that was it. That was a game. Let me show you a quick line. If white didn't resign, what could have happened?
king d,
This
queen,
is
king
just
d4,
not going to
king
show
d5,
you these moves
queen b,
quickly,
king,
because this
king
is
e4,
just losing
queen,
position. If
king
it's
d, king, queen, king,
random
king, king,
checks,
queen, king,
continuous
g,
checks by
f3,
black,
king, queen,
completely
king d,
lost
queen
position. The
takes
king
g3,
goes to
king c4,
dance.
king, queen
White just
f4,
grabs all the
h4,
pawns. Now the
king,
h pawn is
h3,
advancing
queen d,
towards
king
winning. This is
g3,
already mate in
queen,
3.
king h4, h2,
Pawn advance,
h1 promotes to queen checkmate.
pawn promotion to queen, and that is checkmate. That is one of the various lines that the game could have progressed on, and any line, just white is just losing it. So this is it. Thank you for watching the video. This was an analysis of a recent game that I just played on leeches with a dubious opening called Nimzowitsch Defense. And thank you for watching the video. Good night.